In this video we're going to be talking about how you can use the Snappy process authoring tools to create Snappy process workflows. This video forms the first part of a two-part series. This video will focus on the question elements of the toolkit, on how you can capture information from users and, where necessary, evaluate the results. In the second video we will explore how you can use the rules to structure your workflow and make the process much more effective and efficient. The Snappy Process Workflow Editor is a generic tool that can be applied to a wide range of business processes. We have another video which looks at this. However, the purpose of this video is not to show you how to design workflow processes per se, but the focus is on how you can mechanically use the tools. So here we are in the process editor. What you can see is a list of processes, and the information that you can see on them is the name of the process, the type of the process, whether the process is scoreable, any scores and exercises that have been undertaken, the number of stages in the process, the number of questions in the process, and the process's status. We're going to explore each of these areas in due course. How to do this is probably best seen by looking at how we create a process. So if I press the Create Process button here, the first thing that I get offered is the chance to choose which type of process I want to select. This video and the discussion on creating processes is applicable not only to Snappy, but also Snappy for Salesforce, with one exception, and we'll just cover that one right now. Snappy for Salesforce is almost identical in the opportunities that it gives you to manage processes. The one variation is that because Salesforce doesn't share an object which behaves in the same way as our projects behave, you can't use project processes within Snappy for Salesforce. All the other stuff is available. What we're going on now to do is to choose we'll call it a sales process purely for convenience at this stage. You could equally well be a standard account process. The second thing that's important that you can see here is a checkbox which determines whether we're going to score the process. If you want to evaluate the process, in other words, you want to attach values to the questions that have been answered, then you should click on this checkbox. What we're going to do now is to give the process a name. And as I say, it might be somewhat disingenuous, but I'm going to call, since it's a sales process, but I'm going to call this Customer Understanding. Perhaps not the greatest of names, but as I say, the purpose of this exercise is to show you how you can actually use the software. And I'm going to click on Save now. The process has now been created, and we can see a number of different components on the screen. Before we move on any further, we need to mention the concept of stages. Stages represent the various steps in a process workflow. In most CRM systems, stages are simply an administrative label, but in Snappy they are an organic component of the workflow. Let's have a look how it works in practice. Here you can see I've got two stages. The first is a generic stage 1, and secondly I've got a green button to add some new stages. But Snappy is a little bit smarter than that. If I click on the Load Template button, and we'll talk about templates in a minute, I have the option here to select from a couple of stage templates. In other words, I needn't necessarily have to invent my own. If we click on the Salesforce stages, you'll see that a whole trench of relevant stages appears on my screen. I still have the opportunity to add a new stage or to rename my initial generic stage 1, but here I have got the stages I would need to create an end process. We can, of course, change the stages. We can change the order that they appear in simply by moving them around. We can add in additional stages, But we can also develop our own templates. And we can do this by going into Users, into Settings, into Stages, and there you can see how you can create templates for stages. You can adjust existing ones, you can create your own. So in fact the tool is completely flexible. Okay, so we'll now return to the process we were looking at. And here we can see our stages. Just to refer to the way the screen is organized. So over here I've got, if you will, an area which allows me to see my workflow in terms of the stages that are available, and as I add in individual questions they will appear in this portion of the screen. Over here I've got the various editing tabs. So I've got one here for stage settings and I've got one here for fields. I've also got one for stage rules. As I said before, the rules will form part of the second video, and stage rules are very, very important. But what we're going to do now is we're going to focus on how we set up the various questions and the related answers. Just for a pointer to help understanding, because of the free-form nature of this tool, questions and other components that we can put in are actually called fields.